these viewers enough how much we talk football. I mean, probably one of like my favorite sources to go to just to have a quick chat about anything. And yeah, as I said, he's picking or as he said, he's picking spreads on TikTok. I'll leave his links all down below. Please check it out. And today it's been a while, so a really long while. Sorry about that, guys. But we are going to be doing over-unders on wins for one team in each division. So if we didn't get to your team, I'm sorry. We'll probably do it in another video right before the season starts. But I know we've took kind of a long hiatus, but dude, NFL football is almost back, man. Like
so close, dude. It's right there.
So excited, man. I cannot wait. And geez, it's literally 2 Sundays away. Pretty much, actually, like 2 Thursdays away because we got kickoff game.
Yeah, Lions and Chiefs. Yeah.
So I'm sure all my Chiefs fans and all my Lions fans are going to be really excited about that. But enough about those 2 teams. Let's go right into it. We'll go NFC first, and I think let's just jump right in. We're going to talk about the Rams, who I think, in my opinion, are the most interesting team in this NFC West. We know SF's going to be good. We know Seattle's got a pretty good roster, and I'm sorry, Donny, who's a Cards fan, by the way.
Arizona's going to be awful.
We know Arizona's going to be awful, but the Rams, I've seen some people have them really low, and I've seen some people, I'm not going to spoil who, have them doing pretty well. So their over-under is at 6.5 wins. I'll let you start it off, Donny. You think they go over or under that, and why do you think so?
Okay, I am not biased. I just want to go on record and say that. I am not. I picked this team, my own team, the Cardinals, to be very bad. I just want to get that on the record. With that being said, I don't think the Rams are that much better than the Cardinals, really, dude. It's just this roster is just rough, man. I mean, they sold their soul for that Super Bowl, and it's worth it. It's 100% worth it. You get that championship. McVay gets that championship. Congratulations. No one's going to make fun of you for being bad because you just won the Super Bowl. But this is the downside to selling your soul to a Super Bowl. You're just not going to be a very good team, in my opinion. When I look at this defense, it is abysmal, dude. I mean, Aaron Donald is obviously Aaron Donald. Dude, they're starting Byron Young, man. Like, he was a guy who was like a 4th-round pick at edge, who was a bit of a project. I mean, this team is going to be rough. The offensive line is terrible. I think this is an easy under. It's just like we'll get more into it, but like, dude, this roster is rough. The run game is going to be terrible. Cam Akers can't stay healthy. The backup is Kyron Williams, who also had injury problems at Notre Dame, if I recall. I like Zach Evans, but that's who you're going to be starting. Like, come on, man. And then, like, obviously, you know, they have Cup. We all know what Cup's about. Van Jefferson is fine, I guess. And then Beckham Skoranek, he's a good scheme fit with all the stuff that they run down there. Tyler Higbee is kind of whatever. And then, like I said, that offensive line has a case for maybe the worst in the league. It's up there with the Titans. It is up there with the Titans. Like, when you think of the worst lines, I mean, you think of them. You think of, like, the Titans. I mean, I maybe throw, like, who's another team you could throw up there? I mean, there's a couple others.
Arizona, maybe.
Maybe Arizona, maybe. But no, this roster is going to be really bad. I think this is a very easy choice for if you're making a prediction for who gets the first pick. This is one of the 5 teams you have to think of.
It's funny because I literally mentioned the meme of to Donny literally right before we recorded this, the little like tangle meme where all the swords are against the guy. I forget the name, so
it's Kevin Durant's profile picture.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I kind of remembered it. But okay, I'm actually gonna go over, and it's a very unpopular opinion, but I'll give some reasons why. Because yes, you mentioned the defense is pretty bad, and you know it's bad because guys like Colin Cowherd are hyping up Ernest Jones, who literally made like 1 play in the Super Bowl. Other than that, was pretty atrocious. But I will say this: I think you're right. The Rams roster has its holes, but here's what I think it comes down to, and I think like a lot of it does lean on Matthew Stafford. What is the spine and what is the elbow going to look like, right? Because I think that's the biggest X factor. Yes, the O-line is pretty bad. I hate Noteboom. I really hated his tape.
He's not good.
Yeah, right after Whitworth retiring, I did not like his tape. I could go through each of them. I think Havenstein's not bad. Obviously, Steve is their 2nd-round pick this year. Brian Allen has been up and down. He's been okay. And then Coleman Shelton, I barely watched his tape, so I can't really.
Honestly, if I'm the Rams, I'm genuinely thinking about starting Alaric Jackson. I mean, this is a guy, I don't know if you know much about him. This was a UDFA guy back in 2021 who was actually at one point getting 1st-round hype, and then played next year at Iowa and was horrible. horrible because people are like, oh, Tristan Wirfs came out and he's a baller. So this kid,
Right.
no, not at all. And whenever he played last year, because the Rams line had some bad injuries, he looked really solid, actually, shockingly. So I would genuinely consider starting him, but like even then, he's not going to fix much.
Yeah, so the thing is, and I think like schematically, I actually do think most of their offensive guys work. Like Akers, obviously, if he can stay healthy, but if you look at his back half of the season, I know they were playing, a washed up Denver, and like their schedule was a little murky, but Akers, at least in the carries he got, was pretty effective because they would stretch at the field a lot, especially with him going to the outside. Kupp, who we didn't see for the final 8 games due to the ankle surgery, he's pushing 30, but he came back to practice. I think he's going to still be what he was. They're going to use him the same way they did in 2021, the same way they did in 2022, which, again, both years he was popping off. So I think the biggest thing, obviously, is it's going to come down to Stafford. And I think if Stafford comes back at least a little bit to what he was, even in 2022, sure, he wasn't pushing the ball down the field that much. But, they were still hanging in a lot of games. I think the offense kind of deteriorated slowly but surely. I think that Cardinals game where Kupp got injured was their tipping point, because that's when they went on that, because they were 3-3, and then they went on like this 6-game losing streak where it was like, okay, this team was like really bad. Injuries started piling up. Donald stopped playing, right? But I mean, they've got some guys on defense. Obviously, Aaron Donald's going to have to be, really good. And it's like, okay, can Kobe Turner be this Leonard Floyd type of dude? I don't know, right? We're really going to have to see, because, I mean, I was just I literally was showing a couple of vids to him on Donny on like the live last time. If you watch that 2021 defense, right, they would line up Donald and Von Miller on the same side, right? And it was just so effective. They're not going to really be able to do that. So Donald's going to see a lot more triple teams, a lot of chip blocks, a lot of pulling the guards to the outsides, and teams can afford to do that. So that's where I'm a little bit worried. But what I do think this team is, capable of doing is still putting up 20, 25 points with Sean McVay. That's maybe a little bit biased on me, but, their schedule is kind of wish-washy. I think they can get some games at home. They still have a decent amount of that core Super Bowl core on offense. So, at least those guys, their, player for player personnel from skill positions is pretty solid. And yeah, you're right. I mean, we're kind of hoping Steve Avila kind of, has to pop off, right?
I hope for their sake.
Yeah. So I think that's probably your, again, maybe second biggest X factor on offense. But, I like Jordan Fuller's tape. Russ Yeast got to step up, man. Kobe Durant got to step up. But I think for most people, it's going to be an under, but like I said, you're also playing in an NFC that is a little bit weaker, and I see a lot of games that could go 50-50. Saints was a team that, I've seen, same kind of thing, right? Like Rams versus Saints could be a 50-50 matchup in my eyes. Just they're going to play a lot of those type of games, and I think they could get to 8. I think 8 or 9 is their absolute ceiling. But yeah, I think we're probably going to differ on that one. But anything else you got on the Rams for that?
I mean, what I will say is you're not wrong. Like if Stafford is Stafford, if he's what he was a couple years ago, then this could be 100% a team that puts up points. It's just, even if they do put up points, it's hard for me to see them overcome that defense. But I do think you're kind of right. I do think their ceiling is about 8 wins, and it's because of McVay. It's because of Stafford maybe being healthy, and it's Kupp. So yeah, I'd agree with that. I just think it's you're asking for a lot. So that's just
not only that. Sorry to interrupt. Not only that, I guess their approach to the season could be, here's the thing, right? This is their first time they're having their first round pick since I believe 2018.
It was 2016. The last first round pick. It was gone.
So think about that. They have not had their first round pick in literally 8 seasons.
McVay has not made a first round selection.
Yeah, which is kind of absurd to me, right? You haven't really had any of this time, and you've still put out talent, right? I mean, and yeah, your last 2 notable first round picks 3 were in 2014 Aaron Donald, 2015 Todd Gurley, 2016 Jared Goff. You've hit, right? You have hit. So I think 2024, you could also just say, hey, let's just tank for 2024. And obviously, who's on the clock at pick 1, Caleb Williams. So I know you don't want to hear this as a Cards fan, but yeah, if they do get him, so some of us McVay fans are going to be very, very, very happy.
I mean, at the end of the day, I am a football fan through and just at the end of the day, I'm just a massive football fan, but good Lord, man, that would be, oh my Lord, that'd be insane,
It would be
dude.
so effective. I mean, even like if we get some promise from anyone on that offensive line, Steve, I'm looking at you. If we get some promise, yeah, I think Caleb to the Rams would be such a
Even Drake would be sick, dude. Like,
yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
even Drake would be awesome.
Any quarterback with McVay, I think that can at least push the ball down the field is going to be so effective. I mean,
Fair
we've seen
enough.
it with Goff, we've seen it with Stafford now, and I think yeah, both of those guys have really good arms. So
Sense of
that comes down to
that.
that. So, yeah, I think that's kind of where we are on the Rams. A little disagreement, but is what it is. I think next team is I'm actually really interested to talk about this one. We haven't really talked about them much, I don't think.
I don't think so.
Chicago Bears. So it literally says, I'm literally looking it up as I put out my Google search for the over under. It says bookmakers are expecting the Bears to improve significantly in 2023, and the team's over under is 7.5, which is I believe one over the Rams 6.5. So I guess I can kind of start here where I think they're gonna go. I can't push because it's a 0.5, and I've gone back and forth because I literally think it's between 7 or 8. And I think they're going to go literally just under at 7. And my thing with that is I don't even think that's bad for them, right?
No.
If they're considering where they were roster wise, especially like on defense, I think it's kind of like similar to what we just said about the Rams. It was like you gave up Roquan, your pass rush was absolutely nobody's, right? Jaquan Brisker, fine, he was great, right? But like Tyler Gordon, rookie that we thought had promise, was awful, right? Like just kind of a rough year all around, especially because they also were 3-3, and then they had an 11 game losing streak like to finish the year, right? So it was just atrocious late game mishaps, right? Just crazy things like that. But I mean, we saw a little bit in the preseason, just finally getting the ball quick, right? Let your playmakers make plays in space. And again, they run an outside zone system, which is very common in the NFL, but they're finally getting guys that are positioned for that. So I think that is, that's why bookmakers are expecting this type of jump from 3 to 7. And I think they're going to be a team that's a tough out pretty much every game, game to game. And yeah, I mean, if you look at their team, right, like obviously a lot of it kind of comes down to Justin Fields, and we could probably make a whole podcast episode about him. But I'll keep it short. He's a guy that I definitely want to see improve, at least just dropping back in the pocket, because what he can do with his legs, and we know what he can do with his arm because we've seen it at Ohio State. But can you get the layups? Can you, take a quick 3-step, get the ball out quick to a guy, in the flat? Are you going to miss those option routes? Are you going to miss a tight end chip going easy, right? It's like an easy, 3 to 7 yard gain. Take the layups. That's my thing with Fields, right? There was so many times late fourth quarter, he would push the ball, down the field on maybe like a 7 route right on its break, and he would just get picked off. And, my thing with him is take your time. You're in year 3, right? The game should come easier to you. I want longer drives, more sustained drives. And we've seen a lot of quarterbacks do that in year 3, and I think that's what we need from him. So that's kind of my take on it. Donnie, maybe you could hop in on that. What you think about that?
No, I think I agree. I mean, that's just the one thing that we need to see Fields improve. And we know he can do it. We know he has the talent and the ceiling to become that quarterback. We know he can. It's just, I don't think this is the roster to have that jump yet. I think they're getting there. I think they're much better than they were last year. You're getting DJ Moore. Obviously, we all know what he is, and I think he's going to complement Fields extremely well. The running game will be fantastic, as we know. Like you mentioned with Justin Fields' leg, they have Herbert, who's decent. The defense is still the main problem at the end of the day, and I think that is what is going to hold them back. Yannick Ngakoue being the best defensive lineman is...
that pass rush looks atrocious. They did make some signings in the linebacking core, which I liked. I was very happy with that.
And they drafted a couple of defensive linemen. I mean, they got Pickens and they got Grover in the draft, who both guys, later round picks, but they could still make an impact. So linebackers definitely improved. TJ Edwards is one of my favorite players in the entire NFL. They have Tremaine Edmonds, obviously. We're not going to talk about the contract, though. And then,
a lot.
Yeah, it was a lot. The secondary, I mean, it's decent. Eddie Jackson had a very solid year last year after just going down and down and down ever since Angel leaving.
2018. And then he went back up. Yep.
And it's awesome to see. He was one of the better safeties in the league back in 2018. I think I'd agree with you. I have this team getting 6 wins, 6-11. I think it's an improvement, and I think that's all you can really ask for if you're a Bears fan. You don't need to make the playoffs. You don't. You don't have to. Just show improvement. Let's have Fields improve. That's all you can ask for. That's all you need to see.
I will say this though, and I think for any Bears fans out there, anybody that is picking this over, I think here's what you have to rely on, right? If you're going to tell yourself, why can they do this? Because I'm a believer that you could literally make an argument, I think, for like 28 of the NFL teams out there to make the playoffs. I think every team has an argument. I think the Bears are even one of them. And I think it also comes down to that offensive line, right? You got Braxton Jones, Kevin Jenkins, Darnell Wright, all guys who are young, have potential. Cody Whitehair, who's been in this league for a while, solid veteran piece, right? Can these guys bring it together? Because you saw it, right? The thing with Fields too was, okay, the offensive line was atrocious, but the thing with him too was he held the ball. He had, I think, the longest time to throw. Him and Deshaun were the longest time to throw, and it was over 3 seconds, right? But a lot of that is just him finding a little bit of that extra second to throw. But like I said, he would try and let the routes develop too long, right? Wait for breaks to happen before actually throwing it, and that's what led to bad turnovers. So can this line hold up and actually let Fields get the ball out quick? I need to see that time to throw definitely go down. It can't be at 3.13. That's not sustainable in the league.
And I am expecting a good amount from Braxton Jones. I think there's a real argument that he was the best rookie tackle last year. I think you can genuinely make that argument with all the guys who, either weren't playing that well, most of those first-round guys, or Trevor Penning, who got injured.
Yeah.
Hakeem Ekwonu was not that all special. Evan Neal was not very good, and then he was, he got injured in the second half of the season. And then Charles Cross was decent, but, I thought Braxton Jones – I thought he held his own for being a later round pick, being thrown in at left tackle. Yep. I thought he did awesome for a later round pick, and hopefully he can build upon that. I'm not the big Darnell Wright fan, but I've been wrong in the past about offensive linemen, and who knows, maybe he'll be another guy I'm wrong about. But I think this is definitely an upgrade for the offensive line, though.
For sure, yeah. I think that was you could easily argue bottom 3 maybe unit, especially in pass pro. I thought they were. Pass pro, they were horrible. So,
yeah.
But yeah, moving on. I think another team in the NFC South. I think all 4 in the NFC South are very interesting to talk about. But this one has always struck me because I keep going back and forth on them. It's the Atlanta Falcons, and they were a quiet 7-10. I don't they started 4-4, right? They were fighting with the Bucs for that division crown because the NFC South was so atrocious, and then they kind of collapsed. I wouldn't even blame it on Ritter. I think it was just, they just got outplayed by better teams. I think that's kind of what it comes down to. But yeah, their over-under is actually 8.5. So I think a lot of the bettors are saying, hey, if this thing pops, they could win the NFC South. I think that's what a lot of people are saying. And obviously you're going to see, people all across media platforms say, hey, my bold take is that the Falcons win the NFC South. Because honestly, aside from the Bucs, I think you can make a case for all 3 of the teams, the Panthers, Saints, and the Falcons, to take the division crown.
You're not going to believe in your guy Baker, man?
As much as, he got us a playoff win, but
more than Kyler.
It's going to be hard to see a team full of 30 to 32-year-olds across defense kind of making a noise. But I'll let you start. Where do you got Atlanta, and do you think they could push this over?
So I do agree with you completely. All 3 of those teams have a very good chance to win the division. Saints, Falcons, Panthers, they all do. I think all of them do. In my prediction, I have them going 8-9. So I guess I'll say the under, but I'm not very confident in it. It really is interesting because we don't know what Desmond Ritter is. We don't know, but I love the offensive line. I love the running game they're going to have with Bijan and Algier. I think they're going to use Ritter as well. The defensive line improved. They brought in Jesse Bates, who, granted, wasn't amazing last year, and he hasn't really been that dominant guy since maybe 2020.
Yeah.
Or even 2021. I guess you could argue he was pretty good in the playoffs, but it's just – and then also you got the Jeff Okudah injury. Is the Okudah injury bad? Last I heard it was. It's
not that bad. I think he'll probably make it back for week 1.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Yeah. But I just look at this team and I want to believe in it. And I think Arthur Smith. I think people are starting to come around to the idea that he's actually good because there's so many people were trying to push the narrative that he wasn't very good. And at first I was kind of on it, but I wasn't really thinking straight. And then I actually watch it and I realized, oh, okay, he's not that bad at all. I don't know why people are pushing this. Well, it's mainly fantasy guys with Kyle Pitts, but you know how those guys are. But dude, oh man, I want to push this team into like potential they can win the division. But the reason I'm not going to is because I just don't trust Desmond Ridder. I've never been a big Ridder fan.
Exactly.
That's just me at the end of the day. And I know this is a bit off topic, but we talked about this earlier. If Ridder doesn't work, he's easy to get rid of. He was like a 3rd round pick. He's easy. You can just get rid of it. It's not that hard.
Right.
Dude, if Arizona gets the first pick and they're going to potentially trade Kyler, I think this would be
I've heard
absolute dream.
So
If Kyler could go to any team, as a Cardinal fan and as a massive Kyler fan, I don't know if you guys know, big Kyler fan, I'll defend him till the day I die. If he went to Atlanta,
boom.
oh my gosh, dude. Like the potential, and that'd be by far the best quarterback Arthur Smith has ever had. By far, not even close.
Yeah.
And the QB options he'd have with Bijan, and then he'd have Kyle Pitts, Drake London, just throwing balls to the outside, dude. Oh my lord, that potential. Like I said this, I asked this on Instagram because I wanted to see what people think. Let's say hypothetically Kyler is healthy, and let's just say he's on the Falcons, okay? Do they win the division? And so many people said yes. And
yeah, I think
if they had a quarterback I could trust, I'd pick them to win this division so fast.
Agreed.
It's just I don't trust Ridder. That's it. But like, even if he doesn't work, I think it's pretty easy for them to go get a guy. So I do like what they're building. I love that offensive line. I love Bijan. Do they get over 8 wins? I'll say no, but I won't be shocked if they do.
I'm exactly with you. So the first record prediction I made was back in I think when the schedule literally dropped in May, and I gave him 5. Yeah. And I looked at it and I was like, and then I started watching some tape last year and I was like, how can I do that? I can't. I kept moving him up, and I'm with you. I got him 8 and 9 now. And I think everyone who's watched this page knows that I am the scout, schematics, analytics guy. I won't let just saying a quarterback's not good get me there, but I have to with this team. It is on paper so good. I can't tell you how much I love that offensive line, as you were alluding to. Lindstrom is the PFF favorite, right? McGarry, I've loved since he came in the league 2019. Bergeron was a great find. I believe they got him in the 2nd round of the draft, and I love
Matthews has always just been very reliable.
Very solid, exactly. This line can be so good. Again, as you were mentioning, Bijan in an Arthur Smith offense, for people who don't know, is going to be so effective because guess what? He can run the ball better inside than Derrick Henry. I think he's more elusive in there. And I mean, obviously when he stretches on the field outside, he's just as fast, if not faster. So I think that's going to be so effective. But you're right. Ridder in the play action game, which is what Arthur Smith loves to run, can he really be effective? I don't know. But the thing is, I wanted to touch on Arthur Smith because I'm a huge defender of his. His first year as a Falcons head coach, he goes 7-2 in 1 possession games. I think that's a really interesting stat that people don't really talk about. That means situationally he was good. He knew what needed to be done. And then on defense, I love the Onyemata signing. I thought that was really good for their interior line, considering that when's the last time the Falcons have had a good defense? I cannot remember. I'm
pretty sure the last time they had a double-digit sack guy, wasn't it Dante Fowler?
Yeah, and it was 2018, or it might have been. Yeah, that was after Vic Beasley, I think, because he was a random sack leader for no reason.
No reason at all.
That was so random. I mean, I remember it. I was like, he never really popped out of the screen to me, but hey, he got his sacks. And then Grady's always there. We've talked about Jesse and Okuda, obviously AJ Terrell. You know what he brings.
They got Calais as well.
Right. So just they've got a good mix of old and young, which I kind of like. But as you said, man, I think it just comes down to what Ridder is, and I just don't know. I also don't think Drake. They're gonna try and use Drake as they've been trying to use him in this round type of role. I think actually more AJ, just because he's a bigger guy. The problem is he doesn't separate nearly as well as AJ does, which is kind of funny to me because that was one of AJ's knocks coming into the draft. But they're gonna try. And I just don't. I've never been a big Drake guy, but who else can you really put at X with this team, right? I actually do like Matt Collins as a good Z. Scotty Miller, playing that slot could be pretty good too. But again, just not guys who you're afraid of, right? And can I trust Ridder to really push the ball downfield and get it to these guys? I don't know, right? So I think that's always going to be the biggest knock on Atlanta. But if this run game goes, because they were, I think, like, they still had like a top 5 rushing game last year anyway. And they decided to say, hey, let's get one of the best running back prospects of like the last like 5 to 10 years, right? So let's do that. I think that's going to be really effective. But in the NFL today, it is a passing league now. So I think that's going to hamper them a little bit. And I'm with you. I think they go 8-9, right under it. But as you said too, I think it comes down to, like, in the NFC South, I think the Saints are going to be just good, around 9 wins. I think the Panthers or the Falcons, one of them pops and one of them slightly drops. I think that's where it goes. And then moving on to our final team in the NFC. It's a team that, a lot of people talk about. NFC East. We talk about the Eagles. We know what they are. We know what the Cowboys are. We kind of know what the Commanders are. I like Howell. So maybe, I'll just say a quick thing. Howell, I think, will surprise some people. But the Giants, the bookmarks have them going 7.5. That's their over under. And I guess I'll take it from here too. So that's pretty unique, right? Like, why is a team that went to the divisional round, only got better, didn't really have any big losses, why are they all of a sudden flopping down to 7.5? And I think the main reason is that, one, the NFC East counterparts got better, and then also honestly overall in the NFC, and two, can we trust Daniel Jones to be less turnover prone again? I'm going to say yes. I've been a big Daniel Jones guy, and can you please name me any of his receivers that he's had since 2019? Would they start on your NFL team as an X? No.
Well, they would with
okay, maybe with the D-Hop-less Cardinals, fine. But
our X is currently Michael Wilson, so
yeah, exactly.
It's on a high bar.
Yeah, I think maybe fine. Maybe we could get Isaiah Hodgins in there with Hollywood Brown, and we can make the next, Antonio Brown, Martavis Bryant duo. But I don't think we could do something like that. Yeah, I think this team literally where I have them is literally at 8 or 9 wins, so that both would go over the 7.5. Their defense was pretty solid last year, and I think the Adoree Jackson signing was a home run. By the way, I was very happy with how he played last year. I think Evan Neal can only get better. I just don't know how you do worse, especially with that type of talent he had. Andrew Thomas, we know what he brings. And then Darren Waller, who, obviously when he's on the field is a pretty effective guy who can, again, run those seams, stretch the ball down the field. You finally have someone for Daniel Jones to say, hey, I can finally have some sort of security blanket. I mean, you saw how much he targeted Bellinger. You saw how much he targeted Ingram, who may not have always caught it, but at least he was getting the looks. Darren Waller is going to do the same thing, and I think if not better, because he's a guy you could actually line up in the slot. Whereas Bellinger and Ingram would mainly get their looks straight out of the offensive line set.
Yep, in line, yep.
Right, so I think that's going to be really effective. I'll probably leave the rest of the guys too. Probably you could talk a little bit about Kayvon, but Saquon, a guy who didn't have a single multi-touchdown game, by the way. You think that's going to happen again? I think he's going to probably break some loose with a better line. And then, yeah, for Daniel Jones, it's can I get more of this, throwing the ball down the field? He was top, I believe, 8 in deep ball passing in terms of advanced stats, right? They just need to let him go. And I think that's what Dable is doing. He's easing it in. That's kind of what he did with Josh, right? Second to third year jump, at least in Dable's system, was that you saw they would let him push it a lot more instead of kind of tucking it and rolling. This is, I think, what you're going to see from Daniel Jones, a guy who, again, had 700 rushing yards last year. You saw that jump with Allen, right? He jumped to around 700 rushing yards as well. You're seeing it now. Can we see the evolution as a passer? I think so. The only problem is, again, your NFC East counterparts are just, I think, better from top to bottom from a roster standpoint. And I do, as much as I don't really like Dak, and I do love Jalen, I think those two, again, from a talent perspective, can do better than Daniel. But that's not to take anything away from him. I think he's a really good quarterback.
Yep. Another guy you did mention on that O-line that I love is John Michael Schmitz. This was a guy who was slam dunk, my opinion, best center in the draft, no question about it. Now, he may not have that, I guess, Tyler Linderbaum ceiling to it, my gosh, this guy could be an all-pro. But, John Michael Schmitz is going to come in day one and improve that interior offensive line, which was maybe bottom 3 in the league last year. I think that's fair to say. That interior was rough, and basically the entire line was pretty bad except for Thomas. I mean, Evan Neal had a lot of up and downs, and Thomas played like an all-pro. And then you talked about it earlier, but dude, I love Kayvon. Like this entire preseason, every time I turn on his tape, he's just killing it.
Right.
And as someone who really believed in the Panthers, when I watched that game, and I know it's preseason, he dusted Akeem at least 3 times, and it was awesome to see because I'm a big fan of both those guys. But the one thing I question about Kayvon is his play strength. He's obviously very skinny. We all know he's like what 250, maybe 255 at edge, which just seems big. But if you actually look at him, he looks pretty skinny. So that's why I've always wondered: does he have that Myles Garrett? Does he have that Chase Young type ceiling? I don't think so, and I still don't think he does. But this is a guy who could very well be the best edge defender by far at the end of the
easily.
Year. This guy could maybe even have a case to be the best edge defender in this division by the end of the year. I think that's very outside of Micah. Outside of Micah, he could be the best.
Stop yourself.
Kind of forgot about Micah. But no, I love Kayvon. You have Leonard Williams, who's great. Dexter Lawrence had maybe one of the biggest breakouts we've seen last year. He was phenomenal at nose tackle. He brought in Bobby Okereke. Xavier McKinney's going to another year. Hopefully Azeez Ojulari can stay healthy.
Yeah.
I mean, the defense is great. I do question the secondary a little bit. I'm not the biggest fan of Dante Banks. I think he's a bit of a project.
Yeah, I do too. He's a little raw.
Yeah, he's a little bit.
Not the speed though.
Yeah, I love the speed. He's a freak, dude. He's a freak. But it's just love the D line. Love the front seven. The front seven is awesome. The secondary is a little weak, but I think I'd agree with you. I think 8 wins is really fair. Even 9 wins, I think is fair. I'm not as high on Danny as you are. I think there are limitations to how much better he can get because I don't think he has, like, we are comparing him to Josh, but like obviously he doesn't have that kind of talent. He doesn't have Josh's talent. He doesn't have Herbert, any of those top tier guys. That's why I don't think he's ever going to become that true franchise quarterback. But if he's a game manager, and but I agree, if he's just as good as he was last year, easy 8 wins. Easy 8 wins.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, but also right. And situationally too, he was really good. Again, 5 game-winning drives in the first 7 starts, right? Like that's real. Like fine.
That's great.
Say what you want about the talent, but at least fine. The defense got him to that position. He still executed it, right? So, yeah. And my thing with it is like, yeah, can I just get him one season with like any type of receiver close to like even Keenan or Mike or like 2020 Diggs? Can I get somebody?
Well, I mean, Herbert was also cooking with DeAndre Carter.
Right, I know. We've seen him do that type, which is why I don't think he's near the talent of those 2 guys. Which is, you're right. I don't think he is that type of ceiling. But as I'm saying, I'm just looking at these guys. I haven't seen any like Darius Slayton. I can't name you 2 plays in a row where I'm like, yo, he's separated. Like he'll have that crazy spark play, but it's like he's so inconsistent. That's been the definition of all these guys. Paris Campbell, Sterling Shepard, right? Like, and then Jalen Hyatt is definition of a spark plug, right? He'll hit one crazy go route where he'll get 10 yards of separation, and the next he won't be able to beat press. Like it's like it's crazy with him. And I think with Kayvon, I wanted to kind of finally touch upon that. Kayvon Thibodeau, I'm sure our Berkeley football coaches are hearing me as I leave my window open, but we loved him. Like he was a guy that we raved about when, scouts asked us, because they always ask rivals. He's, as you mentioned though, he is a little skinny. And I think to get to that Myles Garrett, Chase Young type of prospect level, or even, the guys right now, Miles, TJ, Bosa, what they do well is hybrid. I think, those who play Madden, that bull rush rating and that finesse move rating, that power rush and finesse move rating, they are 2 completely different things, but they're very important, right? Can you bull, but can you also have that bend and dip to be able to do that? Kayvon has that bend, but can I see more of that bull rush straight power that I think he tends to struggle a little bit with? And that's why when bigger offensive linemen with wider bases tend to kind of keep him in that stagnant motion where he doesn't really have that ability to kind of, switch it up and adapt. So can I see more of that? Absolutely, because again, he's so good at, the things he does well, but I think he's got to up his arsenal a little bit. And if he does that, again, I think the Giants' ceiling though is easily 11 to 12. I think because if you look at their players from top to bottom, except for the wide receiver core, I think the defense has all guys that I think are, on the cusp or have already hit it. Like, as you mentioned, Dexter's hit it. I think Leonard's kind of hit his ceiling, but Kayvon's ceiling is kind of through the roof. Same with, Deontay Banks, who, as you said, is a project. Year 1 will take some time. But McKinney, again, has, I think, a lot bigger of a ceiling. I think this could be an 11-win team. The only problem, as I mentioned, is who they have to play and, where they kind of are slated, right? The NFC East is just really hard.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that 100%. I think 12 wins is a
Little reach.
little bit of a reach. I know you're a big
That's my
Daniel.
Daniel Jones bias talking.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I
I'll
just,
concede that.
dude, it's, dude, I like Danny. He had a really good year last year. It's just, man, I don't know if we'll see. You know what? I just won't say anything. I don't want to jinx myself. We'll see what happens.
All right, we got the NFC out of the way. Now we can go over to the AFC. We're going to do the same order of divisions. I think we did West, North, South, East. So let's go West. We're going to talk about a team that, at least anyone who's watched my TikTok page, they know my takes on it. But we're going to talk about the Los Angeles Chargers, who've got an over/under of 9.5 wins. Pretty much the same because they were 10-7 last year. But hey, I'm gonna let you start off. I'll try and keep my Justin Herbert talk to a minimum, but I'll let you take it over and kind of talk about how you're feeling. Will this team make it? Where do they go?
I think it's over. I do. I think this was a team that was maybe the most injured team in the league last year, and they stuck into the playoffs by the skin of their teeth. The wide receivers were injured. Rashawn Slater was out for the whole year. Their edge duo was out for basically the entire year. I mean, J.C. Jackson was out basically the entire year, although he wasn't very good when he played, but still, that's a guy that you still want out in that secondary. And they still snuck into the playoffs. And Justin Herbert is a top 4 quarterback. I think he is anyway. Shout out this guy over here. I love Herbert, man. He's awesome. I mean, we all know how, even he's obviously special, and he's good enough to obviously carry a team to win more games than some other teams would. Blah blah blah. But I get it. The coaching's rough. Brandon Staley, as a diehard Brandon Staley defender, he's just not the answer right now, man. It's just it hasn't worked out well. The clock management has been awful. They make the playoffs if they don't call that timeout against the Raiders, and it still hurts my head that he did that, man. Obviously, the Jags game happened. I know Brandon Staley deserves a lot of that blame, but also, the run game was abysmal that game. Austin Eckler just could not get anything on the ground. Neither could Josh Kelly. I don't think they didn't have Mike Williams, didn't they? Because they played him. So. Yeah, they played him week 18 and he gets hurt. That's right. Yeah. So they don't have him in that game. And at this point in time, you can't rely on Keenan Allen just to win you games at the receiver position, at least not in today's NFL, maybe 5 years ago, but not anymore. But I still believe in the Chargers. This was one of the most injured teams in the league last year, and they still managed to sneak into the playoffs. I have them getting 10 wins. I have them making the playoffs as the 7th seed. If they don't have Herbert, I'm not picking them to make the playoffs, but genuinely it is because of Herbert. We all know how special he is. Even though you're low on him, you still know he's special.
Yeah, so I think this is the first time we're really talking about it on the pod. I don't have him in my top 5 for those of you who don't. I'm right outside, but I think, again, I think we should have a counter, Donny, on how many times I've mentioned him and his crossing routes. But yes, I think there is a clear flaw with him, especially just I think his accuracy, on those type of routes. Again, Joe Lombardi, who is now the Broncos OC, by the way. I actually found that out really late. I found that out maybe early July. Yeah, I found it out early July. I saw him do some sort of presser, and I was like, wait, no way he's there. But
well, that's another reason why I'm low in Denver is because the coordinators are just, I don't like either of them. I mean, Joe Lombardi is what he is, and then their defensive coordinator is Vance Joseph. Coming from a Cardinal fan, you do not want that.
Yeah. Definitely a step down from Fangio. And then not only that,
Evero too.
Joe's got Sean, and I think, again, I defend Joe a little bit, but I will say this. You should not run the ball only 7 times when you're up 27 points in a playoff game. Please, any coach out there who's somehow listening to this, don't ever do that. Please don't.
Let's not do that.
Yeah. But you're right. I mean, player for player, this team is really good. And to spoiler alert, I got under. That's probably my boldest pick. I guess Chargers not making the playoffs, and actually I have them, I think, at 8 and 9 right now, maybe 9 and 8. I think I had them 9 and 8, but I might bump them down 1. I think I'm right there, 8 or 9. And my reason for that is this: I think Kellen Moore coming in. Look, I've seen so many people really high on him. I've seen some people low on him. I'm a little low in the sense that I just don't think his offense really matches with the players. I think the Chargers got him for who he is. And these guys, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and Quentin Johnson, all guys who can really catch anything thrown their way. but you're not really running air raid with a guy. I don't think Quentin Johnson, who's I think like 6'3", 6'4".
No, I think he measured in at 6'2".
6'2"? Oh, okay. That's a little bit better than what I thought. But I don't think he has that downfield speed to even do the type of things that like they ran with CeeDee Lamb. That's what they got currently. They're running him in the slot. I don't agree with that. And I think Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, guys who have had their injury bugs, but obviously if they stay healthy, would be kind of effective, but they're just not guys that I thought Kellen Moore would kind of want to work with, especially because he wants to go quick pace. And Justin Herbert, a guy who, can you fix this flaw? I think what they're going to try and run to do, they're going to obviously try and push the outsides with 3 of these receivers. Herbert, please hit it. Fine, we could talk about the rib injury, but this was a problem we saw 2 years ago, at least in my eyes. And that offensive line, especially the right side, ever since Bulaga kind of was injured and out, has been very iffy, at least in my opinion. That left side has been good. I think Zion's got a lot of potential as well. We know what Lindsley and Rashawn Slater do. That right side is also a little bit concerning to me, especially I think especially they're going to have to go up against guys like Crosby, who plays against right tackles usually, and I think they're going to obviously match up Chris Jones a little bit to the right side. And then Brandon Staley, who brought us 3-4 here, it's been a consistent 23 to 27th ranked defense. What are we doing? I mean, right? You were brought in to kind of fix this defense. I think the weak side linebackers have been iffy, even though I like Kenneth Murray, but I think I just don't think it clicks. I think they go right under, especially who they have to play in that AFC West. Got to play Mahomes twice. I think they get swept again, so that's 2 losses right there. But yeah, I think this team again just misses it. 8 and 9, kind of in that 9 to 10 range of seeding, just because of how good the AFC is. But as you mentioned, right, and I can't deny it. Herbert, without that flaw, is 100%, I think, one of the 4 most talented quarterbacks in the league, maybe one of the most 5, just because how I am with T-Law. But yeah, I think he's easily up there. He's got a crazy arm. He's obviously got the size. He's got the pocket development, I think. But again, I think they miss it just mainly because of what I mentioned, right side of the line, the receivers, and again, the defense. As much as, player for
run game will be a question mark as well a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. But yeah, moving on, I think, we kind of, anything else on that? I think we're kind of good on that. We just differed, but yeah, one's got
and I can 100% see a word with it. I'm not going out a limb like someone I know by the name of Roundup Sports who thinks they're going to win 15 games. I'm not going to say that.
He said, oh, that's right. No, we had a little wager. I think he said 13 and I said they'd go under. So that could be a free.
I don't know what he sees in that.
Could be a free win for me.
Yeah, I if they don't make the playoffs, I'm not going to be that surprised.
All right, moving on. I don't know how much we've talked about them, but we're throwing it up. We got the Cleveland Browns. I think they are the most interesting team in the North. That may be a little bit of bias. Considering I think the Ravens, Steelers, and Browns are all super interesting, but I think the Browns in particular, oh man, they could be so good or they could be so bad. I think I've seen maybe like tens of videos where teams have been like, oh no way, you got the Browns hat on? Oh my god. Hey, we got double Browns gear in the cut. But
not a Browns fan, by the way. Just want to
but yeah, as I was saying, I think I've seen so many videos that the Brown, and I think Rich Eisen put this best. The Browns are literally the shrug emoji team of the entire NFL. I dead ass I've gone so back and forth with this. There's so many question marks and I think the biggest one is just Deshaun, because Deshaun has so many question marks around him. The defense, player for player wise, their offseason was impeccable. I thought it was so good, right? We got so many guys on the defensive line interior because that was super bad. Jim Schwartz, a guy who kind of comes in, is going to run such a way better schematic defense that any Browns fans out there, this. And even the media knows this, which is funny. They don't talk about defensive coordinators much. Joe Woods was terrible. My God. I mean, you're not supposed to run quarters coverage with guys who cannot cover. I just don't understand that. Now we're going to run cover 3 with, a guy like Juan Thornhill, who played single high with Kansas City, was effective, right? I think JOK is good. Anthony Walker was literally the league's leading tackler before he got hurt. Dalvin Tomlinson, Shelby Harris, Siaki Ika. I mean, all these guys Okoronkwo, Darius Smith. I mean, I'm just throwing guys out, right? Like all of these guys are so good. And secondary wise, Martin Emerson, who I think is going to be a breakout stud. Greg Newsome playing nickel, Denzel Ward. I mean, I'm literally just throwing out the entire roster, but they're all so good. And then yeah, on offense, right? The offensive line I think is easily top 3 player for player. Receiving core, Amari Cooper and Elijah Moore. I think Elijah Moore is going to be a stud. But as you said, I'll probably let you touch on Deshaun. I mean, yeah, because I don't think we've talked about it much. I know on your live, so funny story, Donny's live, he always does the QB tiers thing. He's been doing that recently. Deshaun's the one player that's not on there, and I love it because everyone on the live asks, where the hell is Deshaun Watson? So how about you answer it right here? Where would you put him, and kind of how are you feeling Deshaun does this year?
I on that QB tiers, I'll break down the first 4 tiers real quick. There's the Mahomes tier, obviously, and then there is what I consider the elite franchise quarterback tier, which is Allen, Burrow, and Herbert. And then there's that borderline elite, because I mean everybody has a different definition of elite. I think my definition is there's not as many guys, but these guys are still fantastic. Lamar, Hurts, Rodgers, and Trevor. No particular order, it's just those guys. And then there's the guys who are super talented, unbelievably talented, or just guys who are talented but questions. I think those guys are Dak. I think those guys are Geno, Kyler, and then I throw Deshaun in there. Right. I think we know how good he can be. We saw how good he was in 2020. Although I will say, unpopular opinion, people kind of overrate that season a little bit. It's still great. It's still great. But like people saying that, oh my gosh, that was one of the best QB seasons like of the entire 2020s. I was like, let's calm down a little bit. Like I think I would say, hear me out on this. I think that was the 4th best quarterback season of that year. Whoa, I thought Rodgers was better. No disputing that. He was obviously better. I thought Mahomes was better, and I thought Allen was better. I just thought those guys were
interesting. I had it as 2. So I had him 1, or I had Rodgers 1, I had Deshaun 2, and I had Allen 3, and I had Mahomes 4.
I thought what Allen did was just, I mean,
obviously his jump was really good. I think Deshaun, Mahomes, and Allen were right in that like same kind of area. Rodgers that year was different. I mean, like that was
top 10 season of all time probably.
Yeah. I think, but yeah, Deshaun, to kind of talk about it from a schematic standpoint. Look, Stefanski, I will always love him. I will defend him a little bit. He does have this kind of iffy area for me in the second, third quarter where it's just such bad drives. They'll just die so quick, 3 and outs, when I think the Browns literally had like 11 games where we had an opening drive touchdown with Jacoby or like that's right. Like, yeah, that's really insane. That's really good. So it's like, can this click? And even I don't know if you watched the preseason game against the Commanders, Deshaun was 3 for 3. They had a 90-yard drive going, and they got stopped at the 1. Fine, that's a little bit iffy, just wish-washy play calling. But at least getting down the field, it was super smooth. Elijah Moore hits a 16-yard rush. Deshaun, even though he slipped, still got a couple first downs running the ball. If that's what I'm seeing, right, a lot of gun. That's what you're going to see, a lot of gun, which is, here's the thing. The Browns love to run it outside. What is one of the best formations to do that in? It's gun. What's the best formation to pull your guards? It's gun. Joe Bitonio, Wyatt Teller, love doing that, right? Jacoby was a lot more under center, a lot more play action. I think Deshaun, you're going to see, again, a lot of just straight drops, right? Deep shotgun, for those of you who know that. I think you're going to see a lot more of that, and I think Elijah Moore, someone on the inside, is going to be so key because they're going to use him like an ace, and I think that's going to be really key for them. We didn't even talk about what their over-under is. That's my bad. They're at 9.5. I think that's again, the definition of a shrug because I think they're going to either go like right over it or they're going to go super under. I think they'll probably hit, if they flop, they could be like a 6-7 win team. I guess I'll start. I have them right. I'm trying not to be biased. I have them right under at 9 and 8. That's just because I'm a little conservative because as much as I want to put them at 11 and 6 and say, hey, we could, push for the division, I have to obviously keep my doubts in there. And I think the biggest thing again is just, hey, with Deshaun and also who we play, right? I think Cincy, Pittsburgh, and Baltimore are all going to be super good. But I'll also throw this out there. I think this is the first time I'm going to mention it. Scheduling is going to be huge. So the Browns open Cincy at home, at Pittsburgh, Tennessee, and Baltimore at home. You play your 3 division rivals in the first 4 weeks of the year. And 2 of them at home. I think that's going to be such a huge key for the season. If you go 1 and 3, it's over. I think it's already over. You're already back in the division, right? Since he's not slowing down, Baltimore's not going to slow down if they're healthy, and Pittsburgh, you never know with them. But if they go 3-1, right?
You said you play Cincinnati week 1, right?
Yep. Yeah.
That could be a huge opportunity with Burrow's injury.
Yep. Not only that, Burrow is 1-4 against us, so
0-4 against Baker.
Yep. Oh man, big shot. Yeah. Actually, I think he's 1-5. Then maybe dating back to 2020, he might be. But yeah, big shout out to Baker. Hopefully, Deshaun can kind of carry the load. But man, I think if you open it up, as I said, if you go 3-1 in those games, I think that's a huge boost. Like this could be a real big AFC contender.
I really don't know what else to say. I think you kind of covered basically everything. I guess the only thing I'll say is whether I think they're going over and under.
Yeah.
I think they're going to go over. I believe in Deshaun. We know what he's capable of. We've seen him perform at a high level before. I'd argue this is the best roster on paper in that entire division. On paper, it might be the best roster in the division. I think that's fair to say.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously, there's a coaching gap a little bit between, obviously the Steelers and obviously maybe the Ravens you could also throw in there. There's a bit of a coaching gap, but in terms of the player roster, I think you can make an argument that's the best roster in the division. I think they have the ceiling to be the best defense, and I think they have the ceiling to be the second best offense, probably behind Cincinnati, I would imagine. Yeah. But I love this team. I think they go 10-7. I think you covered basically. I don't know what else to say.
I just kind of spazzed out there, just went crazy.
You know what's funny? I don't usually talk about like schematics and all that because I don't usually do too much research outside of like my division teams. Yeah. But like I had stuff to say about Schwartz because I love Schwartz, but you covered it all. So shout out.
I kind of spazzed. I didn't even talk about like the rookies Whippler and DeJuan Jones. So I'm like I could spazz so much more if I wanted to, but man, like. Again, the Browns have so many I think
go ahead.
I think they have like 75 players right now on the roster. I think I literally know like something about every single one of them. Like I've got nicknames for like so many of them. I'm just locked in because I think, again, as I mentioned and as you said, player for player, this is a really good team. I have very few players on this team that I don't like. And I think like Andrew Berry has done a heck of a job building this team, and it just comes down to executing. That's what the Browns have been. Since Baker's come into the league, 2018 to 2023, they've had all this hype every single year about something different. And it's always kind of come crashing down, except that one year when we had a pandemic. So hopefully, pandemic aside, can we please, do it in a year where there's not masks 24/7? But yeah, I think we'll kind of wrap it up on the Browns talk. I'm hoping we get some Browns fans watching this, but yeah, we'll kind of move on. We'll go a little bit more south, and we'll talk about a team that really hasn't been talked about a lot. The Tennessee Titans. They've just kind of been coasting, right? Like, this was a team that went 7-3. They were like the 3 seed last year, or they were the 2 seed at one point, and then they lost 7 straight, right? Their over under is 7.5. So again, right, kind of where they were. Donny, I'll let you start off. What do you kind of think about this team? Because they're it's so weird because I think they're such a mediocre team in terms of both talent, like just like being talked about in the media. They're just mid, but I don't want to say that. Like, I guess they are.
This is what I'm going to say. I think people overrate how good they were at the beginning. And okay. This is the reason why. When you look at the teams they played, I'm going to go over it real quick. You beat the Raiders by 2. You beat the Colts by 7. You beat the Commanders by 4. You beat the Colts by 9. You beat the Texans by 7. You had a close game with Kansas City. I'd argue that's a fluke because most of these other games, I mean, you got destroyed by Buffalo. You lost a close one against the Giants, and then, you lose like 7 straight towards that second half of the season. Like, I'd argue that Chiefs game is a fluke. So that's why I'm not as high on the Titans. What's the over and under, by the way, you said?
It was 7.5.
7.5? Yeah, I think I'm going to have to go under. I mean, I have them going 7-10. I mean, Brennan and D-Hop is going to be massive. I'm a big Treylon Burks guy. Derrick Henry is aging, and that's the core of their offense. And not only that, we mentioned it earlier with the Rams, but like if there's one other team that's going to compete for the worst offensive line in the league, it's going to be the Titans. This offensive line is bad. It's really bad. The best offensive lineman might be Peter Skoronski already.
Yeah, I know, which is crazy to say. That is very crazy.
And I like Skoronski. I do, but like he's your best day one. Like it's just kind of mind blowing to me. But
So
That's just what it is. The defensive line is going to be great. They have the great interior with Tart, and they also have Jeffrey Simmons, obviously.
Just about to say that. Yep.
I'm blanking on his name. Kyle Long, is that his name? No, what's his name? Linebacker. No,
Aziz?
not Aziz. He went to the Dolphins. What's his name?
Oh, David Long.
David Long. Thank you, David Long. I said
yeah.
Kyle. Who's Kyle Long? I don't
The O lineman for Chicago that retired.
Right. Didn't he play on Kansas City?
I can't remember if he might have played a year. I think he
signed. Was it Chris Long? I think he signed there, and then he never played because they drafted.
Yeah, I think so.
I think that was it. Yeah. Either way, I look at this roster. Like at the end of the day, we all know the Jaguars are probably going to win this division. Yeah, they're probably better than the Texans, and yeah, they're probably better than the Colts. Still don't think they're that fantastic of a team. I mean, obviously you have Mike Vrabel, you can never necessarily count him out, but I just hate the people that say, "Oh, look how good they were at the start, and then they crashed." Dude, their opponents were not very good. Right. Man. I mean, you beat the Raiders, you beat the Colts twice, you beat the Commanders, the Texans, the Broncos, and the Packers. And that Packers game was when Aaron Rodgers was injured. So, and then not to mention bad offensive line, aging Derrick Henry. The weapons are good. Will D-Hop stay healthy? I'm not too sure.
You're right.
Defensive line is great. Secondary, I mean, you have Kevin Byard, obviously. You think he's the best safety in the league. He's at minimum top 3. At minimum, he's a top 3 safety. Corners are okay, I guess. I'm a big Christian Fulton guy, but
I am too.
I don't know, man. It's just they're mid, man. They're just painfully mid, and I just think I think that 7-3 start gets a little bit overrated because genuinely they were beating up on cupcakes. So
I think that's a really good point. Yeah.
I like the Titans, but I don't see them. No, I don't think they go over.
I think they're literally right on the cusp of 7 or 8. Like I'm literally 50. I want to push so bad, but it's 7.5. I can't stay.
It's almost as if the bettors do a good job.
Yeah, I know. Or it's almost if like I want to stay. They go 7-9-1. Like they tie and they go like right there. But man, I mean, look. I think defensively, I think overall as a team, they're getting up there in age, and I think they're trying to converse and go younger. They're trying to switch it up. But, it's kind of at this point, like, Derrick Henry's too good not to use, right? And even though he's getting up there in age, he's too good not to use, right? D-Hop, too good not to use. Tannehill, too good not to use right now, right? Even though he's getting up there in the age. I think out of the 3 guys they got there, you got to start him over Malik, who I was painfully not a fan of. And then Will Levis, who has his flaws, especially in play action. But, like, even their defense, as you mentioned, you know how much I love Byard. Jeffrey Simmons, you know how much I love. They've got guys that I just all across the board I think is a really solid Vrabel defense. And the thing with them is, they have this formula, right? They kind of get in these low scoring games where, as you said, they'll win by 4, they'll win by 2 in a scrappy kind of battle. But they'll also have those games where they'll lose by 2. They'll just not make enough plays on offense. As you said, the Chiefs game, they should have won, right? But Malik just couldn't throw to save his life, and they kind of blew it. But I think they hover right around there. I'm just going to push the over and say they go to 8, right? But I don't think they're going to make any type of noise in a sense that, like, hey, I don't think they'll, be in that playoff hunt. But I think they'll always be a tough out, no matter who they play. And I think the biggest kind of X factor is that offensive line, and mainly Skoronski. Because we saw in 2018 with the Colts offensive line wasn't that good, but Quentin Nelson made that type of just insane jump to, like, as a left guard, to have that type of impact from an individual standpoint on that offensive line. Now, I don't know if Skoronski can do that. I don't think he was nearly as much of a blue chip as kind of Quentin Nelson was out of Notre Dame, but I mean, he is going to be their best offensive line. This is, I think they're moving him to guard, right? Like he played a lot.
He'll be playing left guard, and I think left tackle is Andre Dillard, so he'll be playing next time.
Yeah, exactly. So again, I think that's another X factor. And then, will the Tannehill D-Hop connection work? Because they're going to try and utilize him in a deep play action game similar to A.J. Brown, because Treylon Burks, right, I just don't think he can play that role yet. And then, but D-Hop doesn't have nearly the same downfield speed at this point in his career. Can Derrick Henry, a guy who really has struggled with efficiency towards the end of the seasons, pretty much the last 3 years, even though he was obviously, still rushing for a lot of yards, that end of the year split, especially in the playoff games that they played, you just see him kind of run out of gas and just not be able to push it through the middle of the field. So that's also another concern. But I think we're both in agreement here. I think they're just going to be a mediocre mid team. And it's funny because aside from that one year where they got the 1 seed, they've just been 9 wins all throughout. Remember they had that like 4 or 5 year stretch where they were just 9-7. Like they were like literally the definition of a mid but a little bit better than mid team. And I think that's what you're gonna kind of get, Titans fans. You're just too good not to be bad, and you're too bad not to be good. I think that's one way to put it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Final team, and I think this one, yeah, I know Donnie's like shaking in his boots because this one we're gonna have some fun talking about. It's the New York Jets, and I had to have one team here that like people talk about because we haven't really talked about them that much. I know he's getting ready for it, and you know what? I'm gonna let you start. Their over/under it's pretty interesting. It's 9.5. Which, again, this team hasn't had a winning season in God knows how long. I think 2015 with Fitzpatrick and Decker and Brandon Marshall and all those guys.
So they went 7-9 one year, didn't they? Did they go 7-9?
Yeah, with Donald, 2019. That was their best. But yeah, so they were 7-4 and they had that 6-game, losing streak to end the year, similar to Tennessee. They signed a dude and traded for him. I can't remember his name. Aaron Rodgers, some mediocre player who went to the University of California, Berkeley.
Yeah, he's washed.
Some washed dude. But I'll let you start because I know where you're going with this, but I want you to tell them viewers 9.5 over or under. Break it down.
If you told me the over and under was 11.5, I would still bet the over. This team is awesome. This team was competing for a playoff spot despite having the worst QB play maybe in the last 20 years. Zach Wilson got benched twice. Chris Traveler can't throw. As a Cardinal fan, he's the reason why we didn't make the playoffs in 2020. He was the reason because Kyler gets hurt and we have to play him. And then we lose to the Rams, and we don't make the playoffs. So he's terrible. Mike White, yeah, cool. Yay, Mike White, yay. Second. And then, who is their other quarterback?
Who's that?
It's some guy who, some former president said he was elite. What's his name again? It's Joe Flacco. Not very good either. And they were still fighting for the playoff spot. The defense was incredible last year. I had decently high expectations for that defense. I said if that defense could be a top half of the unit next year, I'd be impressed with Robert Saleh. Robert Saleh decided to say, hold my beer real quick. I'm going to make it a top 3 defense. Corner Williams had a massive breakout year. Sauce Gardner was maybe the best corner in the league year 1. I mean, just they overachieved so much with that defense, and I think it's going to continue to be that way. Jermaine Johnson going into year 2. Jordan Whitehead, hopefully he can have a bounce back year. You have Adrian Amos. DJ Reed is awesome as well. Maybe the best cornerback duo in the league. You have CJ Mosley, Quincy Williams. I love this defense. Now let's get to the offense. Garrett Wilson is amazing. I already think he's a top 10 receiver. And I know that's a super unpopular take. I understand that. It's super unpopular. What Garrett Wilson did with some of the worst QB play that we've seen in years was unbelievable. This is a guy who can separate at a high level, very consistent hands. He can go up and get the ball when it's in the air. Amazing after the catch with awesome agility. He can make guys miss. He may not have that Debo, Kadarius Toney, Rondale Moore type of, just elusiveness and yak ability. I think he's in that tier 2 of guys. He is awesome after the catch. I mean, Rodgers has said it before. He reminds you of Devontae Adams, and genuinely, he kind of does. Maybe a bit smaller, maybe, maybe better after the catch.
Not as good over the top, but he's got
exactly. And obviously, I'm not going to compare someone to the guy who has maybe the greatest release of all time, but I'm high on Garrett Wilson, man. I think he could be an easy all-point candidate. Breece Hall is coming back from injury. Dalvin Cook will be a decent RB2. But even Michael Carter can get some snaps as like an RB3. He's not that bad. Now, the main question is the offensive line. I understand it. Their tackles are very interesting. I think the interior is so much better than some people are giving it credit for. Elijah Vera Tucker, when healthy, is a top 10 guard. Connor McGovern is a decent center. Lincoln Tomlinson had a down year last year. I understand
really down year for that contract. Very bad.
I understand that, but I think there's no way he can be any worse. So
I'm hoping, because I really liked the signing. So I was like,
I did too.
Yeah, I was like, dude, they got really they paid a lot, but still, he was a good player. I thought it was worth it considering, I think 2 out of their 5 highest paid players are on the line.
Yep.
They're putting in money.
Yep. And also, this isn't a situation where Rodgers has to, we've seen it with Stafford, we've seen it with Russ and Brady. They went to new teams and had to learn a new system. Rodgers doesn't have to do that because he's going to the system where he won back-to-back MVPs, and one of those seasons was a top 10 season of all time. So yeah, I think he'll be pretty good this year. I love this Jets team. I understand people like, oh, you can't bet on the Jets because they're the Jets. This is the best Jets team that we've seen in years. This is going to be a playoff team. This is going to be contending for the division. If Rodgers can get back to what he was, which I believe he's going to. Last year, he dealt with rib injuries. He had a thumb injury.
Yep.
I think he'll be much better than what he was last year. He could be the same player he was last year, and they're still going to have better quarterback play significantly. This team was fighting for a playoff spot with the worst QB play, I'd argue, in the last 20 years, dude. This QB play was terrible. Zach Wilson was benched twice. Mike White is not good. Chris Trevor can't throw the ball. It was terrible. I understand the tackles are a weakness. Rodgers gets the ball out quick, so I'm not going to be that concerned about it as much. I love this Jets team. I think they go 12-5. You could even argue me into 13-4. This roster is awesome. I am a big believer in Robert Saleh. I think he's awesome. I think he turned around statistically the worst defense in the league in 2020 and flipped it to a top 3 defense in only a couple years.
Wow.
Unbelievable stuff from him that I love. I understand people are like, well, he needs to get those playoff wins in order to be a great coach. He doesn't. Ignore all those people. He's awesome. And then, like we said it, people have their questions about Hackett. I don't think he's as bad as some people want to make him out to be. I really don't. What else can I say?
I think you covered all of it, man.
The last time Rodgers was in this kind of system, he won back-to-back MVPs. He's reunited with Matt LaFleur. Garrett Wilson is going to be amazing. The offensive line, sure, it's a question. It's going to be fine. And we all know the defense is top 3. So why can't this team make it to the Super Bowl? Why can't they?
Well, I can give you an answer. I'm not as high. I think Donny got his little rant in there, which was great. I think you kind of covered it the same way I covered the Browns. I mean, there's not much to talk about the offense in terms of all the skill positions. I think you covered it well. I will touch up on the line because I'll give my thing. So I actually had him 10-7, and I actually bumped him down 1. So technically that is under. And here's why. I think, look, one thing about offensive lines with Aaron Rodgers that people tend to miscue is they always say he's always had a good O-line, but so much of that is on him for getting the ball out quick, right? The O-line has had all these top 10 advanced metrics because they don't have to block extra. Like, again, like I said, Fields is holding it for 3 seconds. Obviously, the offensive line is going to look really bad, whereas a guy like Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady, 2 of the guys who have the least time to throw, yeah, the offensive line is going to look good. They don't give up as many sacks. That's obviously going to be in play. But this offensive line, however, here's my problem. And the only reason I moved them 1 down because this is the team that I actually took training camp notes the most to heart. And it was because they've tried to rotate 3 different guys at right tackle. I think right now they have Max Mitchell in there, but I've seen they've put Billy Turner in there. They've put Mekhi Becton, guys who they should be starting at left tackle. Dwayne Brown, who's currently out, was the guy that they want to start, even though he's 38, 39. There's just too many questions there. The interior, as you mentioned, has upside, and I like Vera Tucker. But Lakin, again, I need you to get back to your Niners form. It's still a question. And my thing is, Alan Lazard, I think, will be fine. They'll probably put him in the inside and put Corey on the outside. But my thing is again, that offensive line has just been getting beat quick, really quick. And the problem is, right, you just don't want Rodgers to constantly kind of throw the ball away like this. And as you mentioned, I think Nathaniel Hackett's system, running the ball, I think Dalvin Cook and Breece Hall is going to give you that AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones type of backfield. I think they're going to be utilized a similar way. So I think that's going to be effective, which is why I think they get to 9 wins. My only problem is, again, that schedule, the first 7 weeks, it's hell. It is I think it's 6.
I have it pulled up.
Actually, you can pull it up. I think 6 out of the 7.
It's the first 6 weeks.
7 is their bye, right?
7's their bye. Yeah. So you got home at Buffalo. You're away on the road against Dallas. You're home against New England. You're home against New England. Home against Kansas City. At Denver. And then you're home against Philly. So at least they're tougher games. Most of them are at home, which at least that's a positive.
I think all those teams have really good pass rushes or defenses. And I think that's going to be a huge test. I would say the Bills have a pretty decent one. I think that I would give the edge. in terms of trench work, I would give the edge to the Bills there. You said Cowboys, I would give the edge to the Cowboys. Who else did you have on that? Philly, I would give the edge to Philly.
Philly, Denver.
Denver, I'd probably get. I mean, I think it's a 50-50, but I think that game's going to be fun just because of the Sean Payton talk.
No, yeah, that'll be fun. Well, I think the one thing you don't want to do is piss off Rodgers.
Yeah.
So
New England third in sacks, by the way, even though their defense is iffy, right?
It's
like,
almost as if Bill Belichick is really good.
Yeah, for all those Bill is overrated guys, please stop.
Yeah.
His cover 2 schemes are some of the best all time.
Dude, no, it's not some. Yeah. It's the best.
There you go.
And then the last team is Kansas City, which like even if they're pass rush. Like,
yeah, I think that one will be iffy, but you know what they do on offense. So I think it comes down to this: if they can get through that schedule 500 or better, this is a playoff team. But if you start sliding a little bit, remember confidence is a very big key, especially with a team like this with this high hopes. A lot of these homegrown players, Vera Tucker, Quinnen, guys on the Carl Lawson they just got, but like Mosley who's been there for a while, Quincy, Whitehead, all these guys they've had kind of for a while. This is their first real set of expectations, right? The Jets have always been a team that's either overachieved or just been where they are. This is now a team with real, as you said, like Super Bowl playoff win aspirations. And it's like if you start 2-4, right, against these teams, then things start to slide. So I think that first 6-game stretch, as Donny mentioned with those teams, very important. And I think they go, as I said, 500, right? But if they go better, I think they can get to where you are saying. As you mentioned, their ceiling is definitely 11 to 12 wins. But I think it all comes down to that 6-game stretch. I have them going 500, which leads them into that 9 to 10 win window. I think you probably have them doing a little bit better, maybe 4-2, 5. Yeah, exactly, which has them pushing into that maybe 11 to 12 game window. So I think that's where they are. But yeah, you kind of touched on it pretty much. There's no really big flaw in terms of like skill position. I will say, Rodgers has always liked his tight end, and Tyler Conklin and C.J. Uzomah. I guess I'm hoping one of those guys can pop. Even Jeremy Ruckert. I just don't know how they're going to utilize like 2-3 tight end sets with the receivers they want to use. So I think that's going to be interesting to see. But yeah, I mean, even the weak side linebacker, I believe, is Jamian Sherwood. I've not really heard much about him, but from what I've watched, which is very little again, a little bit of concerns. So other than that, I mean, the Jets player for player are really good. But as I mentioned, that 6-game stretch, definitely going to be key as to,
the D-line rotation is also tremendous from them as well.
Yeah. I like that as well. So it's gonna be really interesting to see. I think them and the Browns, those are the two that if they start hot could go really well. If they start really bad, that could go really bad. So I think that's gonna kind of wrap it up. We talked about these 8 teams really in depth. This was really fun. I think it's been a while since we were back. So again, big shout out to Donny. I'll leave all his links below. Picking Spreads on TikTok. You can go find him down there. And again, one of my favorite people just to kind of talk football with. Again, really breaks the game down with me and kind of always takes what I say to heart, which I really appreciate. So again, we've been the Cold Hard Truth NFL podcast. Thank you guys so much for watching. We will see you guys next time.